And we're live, as I like to say. Hi, everybody. This is Michael Finocchiaro. Very happy to be joined today by two amazing French founders, Matthias, I won't even try to pronounce your last name, and Thibaut Wilhelm of Oplit. And just want to say welcome, you guys. Thanks for joining. Maybe, Matthias, you can pronounce your name correctly so I don't mess it up, and you can tell us what Cognyx is doing.
Yeah, I'm Matthias Berahya-Lazarus. So I'm the CEO and co-founder of Cognyx, which I define as an AI engineering platform for hardware. So we're essentially building the Claude Code for industrial products, if I'm putting things simply.
Awesome. And how about you, Thibaut, with Oplit?
Hi, Fino. Very happy to be here. So yeah, I'm Thibaut Wilhelm. I'm the CEO and founder of Oplit, which is an AI supply chain platform for industrial companies. We maximize factory performance with agentic supply chains. So basically, our conviction is supply chain is full of data, super complex and super repetitive, and it's the perfect playground for AI to make your supply chain more performance with less people.
I was just talking to one of the big four today about that specific subject, so we'll have plenty to say about that later. I wanted to ask you guys. I always start this podcast with a question. November 2022, the world changes with this crazy OpenAI thing, ChatGPT. Some people are skeptical. Some people are a bit bullish on it. What about you guys? Were you guys like super, this is going to change everything? You were like, whoa, the pink elephants when I ask for something that's really not what I want. How did you guys live that moment?
Well, I'll start if you want. For me, it was definitely a defining moment of my entrepreneurial life. So I thought, all right, this is going to be extremely big. I could sense this from the very beginning because I saw tech people around me who were extremely enthusiastic. But the real aha moment came, I think, a year later when we started seeing the first use cases in assisted coding. So in 23, early 24. So that was the early days of, Copilot helping you complete your code essentially. And I thought, well, that sounds like a really powerful use case. And it seems that software engineering is greatly accelerating. And that was what actually inspired a vision for Cognyx. So we thought, well, if that works for software engineering, well, why wouldn't it work in some way for hardware engineering?
Very cool.
Let's start building in that direction. So that's what happened for me 2 to 3 years ago.
And how about you,
100%
Thibaut?
align with you, Matthias. The haha moments clearly was, the happening of Cursor and Novable, a couple of years ago. Now where we were like, okay, so it can really replace some people. It can really make some real work, right? And that's when we were like, okay, we are maybe going to go from a tool for supply chain professionals to AI agents that will replace some part of the job.
And when since you guys also just talked about code, so how did it change the way you thought about code and the way you manage your developers, right? Because you're no longer managing just people, you're managing agents and coding agents and so forth. So how did that change the way, as a manager, as a founder, how did that change the way you manage a development organization?
For us, I mean, we've witnessed a dramatic increase in productivity as everyone else. So I think my rough estimate is that we ship probably 3 to 5x faster in code. So that's of course a dramatic increase. I think the impact on the company and how we build is that the bottleneck has shifted from pure tech, meaning writing code, which was essentially a manual job, and the bottleneck shifted to product thinking. So what do we build? How do we build it? Is it even a good idea to build it in the first place? Because once you have the power to build pretty much everything in a matter of minutes or hours, then you can pretty much get carried away quite quick and build a product that makes no sense from a business standpoint. So you need to be very careful.
Especially when Claude says, that's a great idea every single time.
Exactly. So you need to be extremely well thought around how the product is actually making an impact for customers. Is that a good idea? Does that move the needle for them? And I think the bottleneck has shifted to this area.
Yeah.
How about for
And
you, Thibaut?
yeah, on our side, I'll align with Matthias, and also what's really changed for us, it's two things. The first thing is what we are able to solve. So no, in terms of supply chain and scheduling, it's tough mathematical problems that you need to solve. And in 2022, we're able to make, with operational research, we were able to solve simple problems, I'll say. And now we can solve 10x more difficult problems, and we can optimize what we could not optimize before. And so, yeah, the bottleneck changed to understanding the complexity of the problem we're trying to solve, and then delivering it is now quite easy. And we can deliver in 2 months what we could deliver in 2 years, a couple of years ago. So that's a dramatic change. And internally also, so of course your velocity increases. So developers go faster and so on. And I think what we're still working on, everybody in the tech scene is working on, is what is the right organization, right? So who are the good developers? Should I have only one very senior guy handling 25 agents, or can we still have some juniors? What about product designers and product managers? Should we have still two categories, or should we have only one job that does both product design and product management? So we've done already some organizational changes in our team, but it's a working process, and I think yeah, it's a fun thing to see evolve every day.
So, in terms of the implication of AI into the way you guys are building Oplit and Cognyx, is it something? I mean, there was the original thing we already discussed, where people doing copilots. With Matthias, you talked about how at the beginning people were doing copilots, and then I think AI has seeped all the way through the stack, down to even some vendors writing foundational models. I think Thibaut, you were talking about having 2 of those. So, how is AI actually integrated into Oplit and Cognyx, respectively?
So yeah, in our case, we use both kind of AI. So as Thibaut outlined, we solve some tough mathematical problems. Some of them are not solved with statistical AI. So you need good old school symbolic AI to solve some of these things. So optimization under constraints and so on. So we use both. And I would say I'm less interested in the technology than the outcome. So the outcome is shortening the time to market, how fast you're able to design product, and how fast you're able to optimize bills of materials, cost, design under constraints. And in order to do this, you need to bake AI into certain areas of the product. So in our case, it's a lot about how do we extract knowledge from engineers, and how do we turn this into code or structures that the machine can understand and leverage. So that's where I think AI makes a lot of the difference in Cognyx. And it's less about just having a blank screen and a chat that you need to talk to. I think the Cognyx interface, from many aspects, is actually quite traditional, if I would say so. So you see your products, you see your bombs, so you're able to interact with it. I mean, at the end of the day, engineers need to see what they're doing, so it needs a real interface. But under the hood, there's a lot of AI. So that's how we think about it.
And
Yeah.
Thibaut, when we talked, you were saying you actually were using 2 foundational models.
Yeah. So actually, on our side, I feel we want to replace, at the end of the day, the guy who is using our tool. So it's AI can be interesting, like for him to retrieve some data, build some dashboards, and so on. But we did not push so much on this topic. We have some, basic retrieve information, tell me this or this kind of feeders. But at the end, we really want to optimize how the world production is done. At the end of the day, we want to optimize resources, we want to optimize the schedule, and so for us it's really deep tech, how to put everything the schedulers have in their brain to optimize the factory. And so we have two foundational models. The first one is optimization, so how to combine AI with operational research, which is a long-lasting mathematical branch of mathematics, and also regarding the industry knowledge model. So how we capture rules that are in planners' head in order to automate and make the agents do the schedule by itself. So for me, at the end, my ideal product is no product at all. Is only backend and just the factory running by itself. It's going to take some years, of course, but at the end, it's really how you capture rules, how you capture knowledge to run the factory.
So if I rephrase what you said, you really want to have supply chain as code.
Yeah. So actually, like the planners, we want them to write code instead of applying the same rules every day. We want them to define the system, how it should operate, what are the objectives. Should I prefer on-time delivery, or should I prefer the efficiency of my factory? So we want them to define the system, and then at the end, the system to run by itself. So it's a different. So it's a shift in terms of how you think production organization.
And by
That's
the way,
really
pretty
awesome.
similar to what we discussed earlier. So the bottleneck is shifting to what is it that you, human, want to do? Do you want to optimize for your factory efficiency or your inventory level? Or you need to make a decision.
And your ability to define it properly, because like if I look at schedulers at our clients, so schedulers are usually very smart people, but some will be able to code the system and define and structure the knowledge model that will run the factory. And so they are the ones who will control the agents, and some others will not have the skills to do it. So they will probably do other jobs within the company, because they are always people that's very smart people with a lot of knowledge on how the factory works, that you want to keep, but they're just doing other jobs afterwards.
That's really cool. Actually, it wasn't on the script, but I would just be interested because I found that both of you guys were created with a French venture company called OSS Ventures, and I find the thesis behind OSS really interesting. That they look after problems to solve, and then they find brilliant people like you guys to go out and solve them. I would just like to know the story. Like, did Jean-Philippe find you sitting in a bar, or he already knew you guys? How did that actually work? Because obviously he found a problem in terms of engineering data and another problem in terms of supply chain and manufacturing. So how did that actually happen for you two guys?
On my side, so it's a fun story. So with Soufiane, so my co-founder, we both knew that we wanted to create a company. On my side, I had like a few iterations, and I was discussing with Ronan, and he told me, okay, next week we work with Soufiane. We're gonna travel around in the factories. Do you want to come with us? And I was like, yeah, maybe. Do you have something better to do? I was like, no, I just resigned from my job, so maybe the next 2 weeks I can, just travel around. And I felt in love with the passion people have in manufacturing. They are really people that love their job, that are very skilled, and they are like really pragmatic. So I was like, okay, I am really happy to work with those people. I knew manufacturing quite a lot because I was working in this area, but I was not sure I wanted to create a company here. But that's how I felt in love with manufacturing. And regarding production organization, at the beginning, we really wanted to tackle something different, which was middleware. So how we integrate data from ERPs. And by chance, I'll say, some people told us, we want to integrate this data and this data to make this super complex scheduling product. And the fun thing is that when I was working for McKinsey, I did several projects where I was the one building some crazy Excel files to optimize the scheduling of factories. So I was like, oh, this rings a bell. So this is why we're like, okay, let's go all in on how to organize factories and the world's production.
Awesome story. Thank you. So that was like walking the factory floor. Matthias, same thing for you, or you were watching
Yeah,
an engineering organization and seeing the Excel spreadsheets rather than the PLM systems?
yeah. So my story with OSS Ventures started when I met Renan. So I actually reached out to him when listening to a podcast where I found that his thesis around manufacturing in the West was wrong, really, really true. He was already on a mission to, help the West rebuild an industrial capacity, and I thought this was extremely important for France and the West and the US in particular. So I think the mission rang really true to me. Then I met with Renan. We bounced a few ideas and found that the biggest problem we could think of that was surfaced by manufacturers was around their engineering, design, and development processes, how slow this was, and how this was true completely across the board in automotive, aerospace, consumer goods, mobility, you name it. They all were complaining about how slow it is to reconcile tons of documents that make no sense. So that's how we started. We thought this was a really tough mission, but the problem was huge. And as an entrepreneur, you need to fall in love with the problem, not so much the solution. And
That's a good one.
that's how we started building in that direction.
It's actually my friend Jason Casper in the chat is asking, I think a good question. He says, is AI making the digital thread more important, or is it exposing to how many organizations never had one in the first place?
I think many organizations don't have one. And now AI and new technologies, especially around databases, knowledge graphs, and so on, are indeed the capacity that will unlock this. So there's a great and very strong opportunity to be building that now.
Yeah, for us, AI is a big opportunity to make industry more competitive. That's as simple as that. So it's just for me, it's just a continuous improvement journey of digital and the impact on manufacturing. The real game changer is also like the ability to capture knowledge and navigate through it. So really replace a human and not give tools to human.
So let's stay there just for a second. It's probably worrying for a lot of the younger people listening that don't have years of experience. They're like, okay, so these guys are after killing my job. So what kinds of things should the younger generation, because the demographics that people watch my podcast, there's about 23 to 32%, depending on the podcast, of entry-level people, or maybe some of them are actually, just graduating or grad school. And they must feel a little scared when you say, well, our job's basically to eliminate your job. So what should they be doing so they're not on that list of easy to eliminate, don't bother hiring? Like what are the skills they need, and why should they come and work for Cognyx and Oplit instead of going to somewhere boring like Accenture or Microsoft?
So those are two different questions.
I
but
know,
for the guys in supply chain, I think I will make Oplit and the AI wave will make their job more interesting because they will really be able to extend the scope and the impact they can have on a company and on a factory. Before Oplit, the guys were just saying like, okay, after apple pie, should I do strawberry pie and then banana pie and so on? So every day is the same questions and so on. No, they can really control the factory and say, okay, how do I increase the throughput of my factory? How do I deliver on time my clients? So you really are focused on the output rather than really doing some constraints every day. So in a sense, the job is like really like 10 times more interesting. So you just need to really understand the basics of supply chain, the basics of production, and then be someone super structured. And it will help you, master your job for the next 20, 30 years, because at the end, you will always have some strategic decisions to make. It's always trade-offs that you do, some arbitrage between, between your clients, basically, and the competitivity and the productivity of your factory. And why should people join us? You should join us if you like to optimize stuff. For example, the morning I go to work running, and I listen to a podcast in the same time, or I do a call. Every time I'm thinking in my head, should I, start my coffee now and do something else in the same time? So if you're crazy like that and like to optimize stuff, you should join Oplit.
I love it. How about for you, Matthias?
Yeah, I would have maybe a slightly different opinion on whether Cognyx is going to replace engineers. I don't think this will be the case. I think engineers will definitely be a lot more productive in the sense that they'll process probably a lot faster and a lot more information, probably for a lot more products. Products might be a lot more complex, so they can handle more complexity with the right software tooling, using, of course, a lot of AI. I think it's pretty similar to what happened maybe 30, 40 years ago for accountancy. So if you introduced Excel to accountants 30 or 40 years ago, they might say, oh, okay, this is the end of my job. Reality is 30, 40 years after, there have never been there's still a lot of accountants, and probably a lot more than 20, 30 years ago. Because now finance has moved not to accounting, but to controlling and financial projections. And so you can handle a lot more work with the right tooling. So in that case, Excel, and of course, many of the SaaS and AI that came after this. So I think that's more the direction that I'm seeing. Using Cognyx, manufacturers will be able to handle a lot more complex products, ship them a lot faster with a lot more consistency and a lot more reliably. And that's what I hope will make engineers' life a lot more interesting.
And just as we're talking about students, there's a student from HEC that just wrote to me.
Okay.
Chat, Louis Colin Michel, and he says, a question about reindustrialization in the West for Matthias and Thibaut. How can we attract the next generation of workers to this sector, especially in France? In other words, not all moving to California or Boston, right? Industrial jobs have long been devalued because they're seen as dirty old jobs. It's a question that would probably require 10 episodes, but what advice do you, Matthias and Thibaut, have to policymakers in order to keep the jobs here?
Yeah, so for me, it's one of the reasons why we created Oplit. So Oplit, it's the contraction of operations lit. So the story behind that is to say, manufacturing, industrial sector, it's cool, it's lit, and we want to showcase to everybody that there are some fun problems to solve. There are some really concrete things that are being built. And when you go to a chocolate factory, or even when you go to a fasteners factory, it's really fun to see. So this is really embodied in our company, to say to people, look, manufacturing is very cool. You are gonna learn a lot of stuff, and you can really be passionate about it for the next 30 or 40 years of your life. So this is what we try to scream to the world. But yeah, it's tough. So for example, I remember, I did an engineering school called Centrale in France, and I think we were like 300 in my division, and maybe like 5 to 10 people went working for industrial companies. So we need to increase that number for sure. Maybe less consultants and more guys working for industrial companies. Because at the end, that's what is important for your country. You need to have some sovereignty and some ability to build your own stuff, right? Otherwise, you just consume what are done by others, and you're stuck.
So, Matthias, what advice do you have to the policymakers to keep those jobs here?
That's tough.
Yeah. So first thing
Besides
is
lowering taxes, of course, that's like number one.
Yeah.
Right?
Increase taxes, yeah.
Especially in France, yes. Well, I would say that we have no choice but to reindustrialize. I mean, if you're looking at the geopolitics today, we have no choice. We need to ramp up industrial jobs and industrial capacity in the West, being able to make our own things, our own cars, our own weapons, our own everything, because the reliability of the supply chain is being questioned every day as the world is getting more crazy. So being able to make industrial and design our own products becomes pivotal for the company. Now, I would advise probably policymakers to stop having I would say, a romantic idea of reindustrializing the West. So you might be thinking, oh, we'll have the small factories in our countryside and this will be nice. We have workers, just doing everything by hand. No, you have to get rid of that idea. This is not going to happen. The factory of the future will be extremely technical with heavy investment, heavy automation. Probably 10, 15, 20% of the cost of a factory will be into software to make sure that it's automatized enough and that you have a lot of leverage from software on the hardware being made. So I would definitely view manufacturing as a heavy investment area. It's not coming back like 50 years ago.
Which brings me to the last question for this section, and it's interesting because you mentioned the AI factor of the future. I remember last year, all of Jensen's GTC talks were about this AI factor of the future, that every physical factory will have an AI factory, and every AI factory will have a nuclear power plant, preferably fusion rather than fission. And I think that you guys, the startups, are all building like one brick at a time. You're building that AI factor of the future, right? So at the same time, we saw an OpenAI moment for programming, right, with Claude Code and Cursor. We saw the OpenAI moment in 2022. I'm not sure we've seen the OpenAI moment for supply chain and engineering, or maybe you guys made it and I didn't see it. But how long do you think before we have that? There's a before and after, because clearly with OpenAI and with Claude Code, there was a before and after, and nothing will ever go backwards again, right? So when do you think we're going to hit that in your respective areas?
I think on our side, I think it's gonna come in the next months. We're really at this moment, for supply chain really. Why? Because it's problems that are full of data, super repetitive, quite complex, and for one problem you have one solution that is obviously better than the others. So it's really good AI playground, and we see that a lot of startups are trying to solve this. We're trying to solve this. Also, the tech giants like SAP and similar companies are working on agentic planning. So a lot of efforts are put into this. Many people think it's gonna happen by 2030. So yeah, this is 100% sure that by 2030 nobody is gonna plan using an Excel file in advanced factories. So for
I'll
me,
take you as a bullish, very, very bullish. Okay. And Matthias?
yeah,
As bullish in terms of engineering or less so?
Exactly, super bullish. I mean, I think what you're seeing is that AI has not been productized yet for the engineering use case. So we are, of course, building very aggressively in that direction. And the question is, how soon can we actually have the whole experience working? But in order to do like I said, the Claude Code for industrial products, you need a lot of framework before you can do this. So you need, of course, for all engineers to work on a single source of truth, which is not the case today because they're working in different documents. You need engineering to be composable, so they need to build from existing modules so that humans and AI can understand what they're doing. You need knowledge to be executable, so it needs to be understandable by, again, a human and a machine. And once you've done this, then you're able to do full agentic engineering. But you need to have a lot of scaffolding before you're able to actually deliver that experience similar to Claude Code.
I was about to say, I think that the bottleneck is the fact that in both supply chain and engineering manufacturing, we're extremely deterministic. I mean, obsessively deterministic. And LLMs are unfortunately obsessively probabilistic. And so that's the rub, right? Is how close can we get to determinism with the guardrails, with all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to finish because I know Thibaut particularly has a deadline. I like to talk at the end about digital maturity in general. So we've been talking about Excel a lot on this call, and that's sort of the basis of my question, where I think about when you go to your customers, when you go to the customers of Cognyx and the customers of Oplit, I think of digital maturity sort of on a spectrum from 1 to 5. Like 1, they're still using Teams to communicate, and they're still using Excel for almost everything else. Okay, they bought Windchill, or it's 3x, but actually nobody uses it because, well, Excel. And then on the 5, you're in fully agentic, adaptive, autonomous digital twins. And basically nobody's at 5, right? I mean, there might be one division of SpaceX that might be there, but it's pretty much la la land still. So what is your perception when you meet the customers? I bet, because I can't ask a customer that. A customer's going to say, hey, I can't say that. I'm going to look like an idiot. You guys, without naming the customer, can say, well, I feel that they're closer to 1, closer to 2. What is your impression of where they sit on that spectrum?
I think there's a lot of heterogeneity. So I'm saying something that is very obvious, but clearly some companies are at 2 and some companies are at 4.
4, really?
Yeah, some
Okay.
I mean, if we want to say, for me, 4 is I have structured all my data. My data makes proper sense. I
have
can
a CDO.
exchange it.
I have a data organization with a CDO on top. Okay.
Yeah, and I can extract and use any data and share it, right? And I'm starting to play with AI agents that have value, right? So that will be 4 for me. And we see some companies that are able to make it happen. Usually, it's more like big companies that a few years ago, like took a bet and said, okay, I'm going to have a proper data lake, whether it's a data lake or it's structured within my ERP, but I will have this one single source of truth, and I will have internal people that will be developers that will help some suppliers. I'm going to have a lot of tech suppliers, and so those some companies took this bet, and others I think they're quite advanced, and some companies, it's a complete mess. But to work with us, it's easier, and you will capture way more gains if you start from 3 or 4 rather than if you start from 1 or 2. So we have some other products in the company for, like if you have a lower digital maturity and you just want to execute easy stuff. But if you really want to have AI agents and AI brains that, like schedules your factory, that pilots your factory, you need some proper structure to capture those gains. And you need the data and you need the knowledge, the tech knowledge and the supply chain and industrial knowledge.
Thank you, Thibaut. Wow, it's the first time NVIDIA said that there were so many 4s. That's really, Matthias. I'm just guessing here, but I'm going to guess that there's not as many 4s in our area of PLM and engineering, right?
Yeah, I mean, when we walk in, there's usually the same kind of maturity everywhere. So sitting between 2 and 3, I would say. So they usually have a PLM with part of the information. They usually have a lot of shadow engineering on Excel. And they usually have many standard operating procedure and many knowledge in PowerPoints and
All over
PDFs
the place.
documenting how things should be made. So that's the status when we come in. And what I can tell you is that every board right now has this conversation. So how fast can we embed AI into our most critical workflow? Because we need it for competitive reasons or for efficiency reasons or for bottom line reasons. So they're all having this conversation. I think at this moment they've tried some things. So they've tried some maybe proof of concept, maybe with a few Copilot here and there, and realizing that this is not making the cut. So they need to be leaning in a lot more heavily, and probably that means investing into the right tech, but also investing in human transformation. So how do you change the people that are going to work with that technology? Because once you introduce such a powerful and transformative technology as AI, you need to rewire the processes and essentially the human brains around it. And that's a lot of work. So In our case, we're here to assist that. So we deploy specialists along with our technology to make sure that this transformation can happen. But that's not to be underestimated.
I appreciate that answer. In fact, so the next to last question is just a goodbye question. But the next last question is, have you seen when people have we're at 3 or 4, well, more like 2 or 3, and they use Cognyx or they use Oplit, is there sort of has there ever been an aha moment like, oh my God, if I broke the data silos, if I got the data out of the old files, if I got different departments talk to each other because they don't talk to each other, my God, what I can do all this great stuff and I can have better ROI and get product out there. Have you seen that aha moment in your customers' eyes?
I love this question. I definitely did. And especially the customers that have this aha moment are usually hardware engineers that can also somehow code software. So they're software developers, maybe on weekends because they like to Claude Code things and so on. And so when we show them, for example, how we translate an engineering or manufacturing rule into code, so Python or CEL in our case, and how this can be applied to their model subsequently, they're like, oh, so this is like a test pipeline, a CI/CD. It was like, yeah. Oh, that's amazing. So then I can accelerate because I know it will test. Yeah. And so that's the haha moment for them because they get the system thinking that is so powerful in software engineering that they can transpose to hardware. And
awesome. How about Thibaut? Have you seen that too?
Yeah, for us, the aha moment I feel is more for the managers.
Okay.
Maybe our persona, so schedulers, are they're geeky, but not as geeky. Maybe as like engineers, Cognyx are working with. So they more see like, okay, it's going to be automated. They challenge, oh, do you take this rule into account and so on. So they're really more into like making the thing work, but they do not. I do not feel this big moment. But once the manager, like the supply chain director, the production director says, all right, but like the schedule has just updated by itself. Yeah, that's the whole point, right? So that's how it works. Then it's a big aha moment because like it's like a senior developer who understand. Oh, okay, no, I can control 10 junior developers and they are going to do exactly what I told them to do. Yes. Oh, yeah, this is cool. So now I'm sure that my scheduler the schedule is gonna be aligned with my strategic goals. Yes, because you're gonna be the one who will define the rules and the rules are gonna be respected. So yeah, the aha moment for us comes more from the middle managers, I'll say.
That's a fantastic answer. Thank you. And I think both of those examples really point to my central thesis of some of these calls, which is that if you want to move the dial towards that 5, waiting for SAP or the other big 3 to do it is probably not the right call. It's probably better to go to Matthias or Thibaut and use their much faster software. Right? I appreciate you guys being on here. Just before we go, I just wanted to we're going to go on our summer break, but maybe in the fall, are you guys going to be at some trade shows? Maybe I just saw the first invite from Adopt AI. I don't know. I think you guys were there last year. What's up? So how folks that are coming to Paris, or maybe you guys are traveling internationally, where can they meet you and see your solutions and demo? Besides online, of course.
They can come to our office, so which is based in Paris. We're gonna open office in the US very soon. So
nice.
I'll be happy to meet anyone physically. And yeah, we cover a lot of trade shows, especially aerospace, luxury, and batch process. So if you're on a trade show for this type of subject, you just can join us. And we organize a trade show for aerospace in September in Bordeaux, in France. So we are.
Do you need guest speakers?
Yeah, but it's really focused on aerospace, and so we're working with the GIFAS, which is European industry,
awesome.
So consortium, and so it's Oplit and the GIFAS working together on digitalization for aerospace. So it's 22nd of September.
Awesome. How about you, Matthias? Where can we meet you in Cognyx?
Yeah,
in
so
the
far
fall?
I haven't been a great party guest in those conferences. I must admit, I've been very busy at clients, on factory floors, as Thibaut said, making sure that whatever we build is actually used on the ground. So that was most of my time for the last months and years. But I will be at Adopt AI, and we
Oh,
will
cool.
also open in the US. I would say in the coming months. So you will definitely see us in Paris or probably East Coast.
Awesome. Well, in the interest of finishing exactly on time, I wanted to say thank you very much to both of you. Of course, there'll be another threaded conference, and you guys will be obviously privileged guests if you wish to attend. To everybody else, there'll actually be another podcast with TechSoft 3D in about an hour from now. Thank you very much. We'll be back. I think we're not sure going to get any more podcasts done before September. We'll be back in the fall. But thanks everybody, and a big thanks to Thibaut and Matthias for taking your time today. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks a lot. I had a blast.
Yeah,
Thank
it
you.
was a pleasure. Thanks a lot, Fino, and have a great holidays.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye bye.